Welcome to Thoughts on Thursday. It's Reverend Miller
and Stuart Holmes.
It's been a while for Thoughts on Thursday, and we're glad to be back. One of us was out eating cornbread, traveling around, and so we weren't able to do it, and then we have come back. And if you're a part of our church, you know we've been concerned about COVID. It is an uptick in New Jersey. If you're watching us from a safe state that doesn't have an uptick, we congratulate you on that. So this coming Sunday will be mask mandatory again, and we'll make another decision and see if that gets lifted for the following Sunday. And so for our thoughts today, Stuart's going to talk about improvisation a little bit, and my theme is a little bit similar to that in the sense that we follow the lectionary here at Old Paramus Reformed Church, and I've mentioned before, this is the first time that I've really preached through the lectionary. Prior was topical, or I would pick it as a pastor, what passages we're going to look at. I enjoy preaching through the lectionary. We're about through my third cycle, so 9 years of preaching through the lectionary. And there's a sense that, the lectionary lays out the passages and you have to preach from those passages. However, there's 4 different passages, and so there's some flexibility in looking at those passages and which ones you're going to use in worship. And even beyond that, the wonderful part of that is that if you continue to do it, and for me this is 3 times through, so 9 years, that when you get to different years, you might be in year C, this is our 3rd time for year C, you might emphasize different things. So in years past, we have done Luke Acts during Easter season, and this year we're looking at the Gospel of John and the Revelation passages, which also are written by John. So you have a theme there, and you get a little different nuance by doing that. Right. And to remind everyone that in the Easter season, which is 50 days, there is a Psalm lesson, but there's not an Old Testament lesson. The book of Acts replaces the Old Testament lesson during that season. And so when we look at that, you can have some creativity there in focusing on different passages. But you also can, and we've done this the last few weeks, have some playfulness with the other passages that might not be read right before the sermon. So was it 2 Sundays ago? 2 Sundays ago, I put out a challenge to memorize Psalm 23 in a King James version. We didn't read that in our 2 passages. We had Revelation and we had John. But starting my sermon, if you watched or were present, we had a little test to see who had it memorized. So we used the 23rd Psalm in that way, and I can weave it into my sermon, even if we haven't read it. And then, for those who are really looking closely, you will find some of those passages in the prayer of confession, in the assurance, call to worship. We're placing them in different parts of the worship service to use them and bring out that fuller understanding of God's Word and all those passages. So, it might seem like, man, this is repetitive, but there's so much flexibility within that repetitive activity of having that 3-year cycle. And they say, especially for musicians, repetitive, to repeat is how you get better, right?
Yeah, we hope.
I'm sure Stuart has nightmares of doing scales over and over and over and over again, because you got to get those down, right? And that's
I still do.
With the lectionary, that's what we're kind of doing. We're getting these basics down, looking at them over and over and over, allowing God's Word to speak to us each time in a new and wonderful way. So that's me.
That's it?
That's it. That was long.
Wow.
I thought I was going on forever.
My. So I'm left with closing this out and talking a little bit about improvisation. I talk a lot about it through our church newsletter and through the Sunday bulletin wherein I have a small paragraph each Sunday about the music. The style of improvisation, of course, dates way back to the beginning of church music, with largely the Catholic Mass singing a Sanctus or something, and while the priest was preparing for the next part of the service, or just as a break, the organist would take that psalm or that plain chant and would improvise on it. So that's back, way before Bach. The French style, because it was largely Catholic church in France, that tradition kind of came to its full fruition. And then my opinion is that somewhere in the modern 20th century, 50s, 60s, that style became we almost lost it. Now what's happening is conservatories, those who are teaching musicians to be church directors or church organists, are teaching the art of improvisation. And the opportunity is to do what I did at the very beginning of this. It wasn't very classic, it wasn't very fancy, but it was an improvisation. I didn't have the music up, or I wasn't looking at that. And they're teaching improvisation between verses, and it's becoming more and more accepted among the professionally trained musicians in the church to find opportunities to change or to find ways to improvise around the hymn tune.
Interesting. I would say that if I heard the word improvisation, I would think jazz.
Jazz, of course.
But you guys had to first let it go, and now you're reclaiming it.
Yeah, well,
in some
I'm
ways.
not going to claim it away from the wonderful jazz of the sounds of jazz, but so now I am trying my very best to follow my teacher's lead and find ways during the service to not use the music but to improvise.
And that's another way to bring themes back, right?
Right.
As you were saying, you're pulling it in different spots and kind of a way to connect things.
Right, and we're trying to highlight with Come Thou Font, we had kind of an interesting, kind of a bouncy rhythm, which is certainly more on the jazz feel. The prelude that I'm playing on Sunday is a very different feel. Beautiful prayer setting of that hymn tune, Nettleton, which actually goes back into the very early 1800s, 1813. So that's what I'm going to be playing that prayer. I'm not going to be improvising on it, except for if the hymn lends itself to my brain, I may improvise on the hymns that we do.
Wonderful.
And then, of course, the postlude, very quickly, is John Stanley's trumpet tune, which those people that are still listening when we say goodbye, you will recognize. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, wonderful.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. All right. Maybe one of these times we'll have to, for the prelude, have named that tune. You could
not
have it in there. We'll be out there. We could see who knows what that's from. So these are our thoughts. We're glad that you've joined us. We hope to see you next Thursday. We hope to see you this Sunday. And we'll have live service here in the sanctuary at 10 a.m. But we hope to have live stream on YouTube at 10 a.m. and then post it on Facebook shortly thereafter. So
I should have said that the choir is didn't sing last week, and will not sing this week just because of our being abundantly cautious.
Yes.
And we'll have a quartet singing for this Sunday service.
So it'll still be a great service.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. So hope to see you then.